Welcome and welcome back, everybody. My name's Tia, and in today's video, we'll be going over a tutorial covering the 4 mini expansions included in the Lush Green and Shining Yellow editions of Railroad Ink Challenge. Now, if this is your first time playing or you're not sure how to play the base game, feel free to click the link up in the card or down in the description to watch that video first. That being said, let's dive in. In the Shining Yellow and Lush Green editions of Railroad Ink Challenge, there are 2 mini expansions each. In Shining Yellow, we have our Desert expansion, which will be drawing cacti and oases, our Canyon expansion, where we'll be making giant gashes into our board, and in Lush Green, we have our Forests, where we'll be growing trees, and our Trails, where we'll be connecting stations via this new type of route. When playing Railroad Ink with one of the expansions, there are 2 small changes that you'll need to make to set up. The first is to add in the 2 expansion dice that match the expansion you are adding, and the second is to replace one of the 3 goal cards with an expansion-specific challenge card. For example, this one is titled DA for Desert A, and you can see we have our 2 desert dice. The expansion that you use may limit gameplay from 7 rounds down to 6, and it is also important to note that with all 4 of the expansions that we're about to dive into, that you are still required to use all 4 of the white basic route dice, but the expansion dice can be used at the discretion of each player each round, meaning you could use both every round, you could choose to use 1 or even 0 on some rounds. Let's start by taking a look at our desert expansion. The desert dice have a combination of routes, cacti, oases, and the sun, which is called an arid face. When we are placing these dice out on the board, they do still need to have connecting routes, so highways to highways and railroads to railroads. However, any dice with cacti or oases can be placed anywhere on the board in no man's land, as long as we don't have mismatched routes. This expansion will limit us down from 7 to 6 rounds. And over the course of these 6 rounds, we are going to try to place as many cacti as possible that will survive through the entire game. Once an arid face is shown, we have to check our cacti to make sure that they have access to water, otherwise they'll dry up and be erased from our boards. In this case, this oasis provides water to the 4 orthogonally adjacent spaces, meaning diagonals don't count. So these 3 cacti would be protected. However, this cactus down here and this cactus up here are not protected by an oasis. We either have to erase them and forfeit the points, or we can use one of the 3 special routes if we have those still available to us and erase it in order to protect cacti for that round. So let's take a look at what final scoring would look like for this expansion. Here we have a game that's been completed after 6 rounds. You can see that we have many oases here as well as some cacti. Before the final round, we'll re-roll these 2 dice one more time. And if they show an arid face, we'll have to erase cacti, or if we have a special route saved, we can use that to negate erasing our cactuses off the board. At the end of the game, each remaining cacti will be worth 1 point. The next expansion we'll take a look at is the Canyon expansion from Shining Yellow edition. Unlike some of our other mini expansions, when playing with the Canyon expansion, we'll play for the full 7 rounds of the game. Canyons are like an extra special type of route that we'll be drawing along the edges of our squares. When drawing a canyon, it has to start from an edge of the board or connect to a pre-existing canyon. So in this case, this canyon placement would be null and void because it does not build off of an existing canyon. We also can't have canyons branch out. So for example, here, we would have to continue off the end instead of building outwards and having any sort of T-shape to our route. Now, the catch with canyons is that in order for us to build routes leading up to them or passing through them, we need to use bridges. You'll be provided 11 bridges over the course of the game, which you can use the score tracker to mark off. Here we can see that there is a railroad passing through our canyon, so we would have to cross off 1 here for our first bridge built. As soon as we have any routes leading up to a canyon or a canyon placed next to a route, we also have to cross off a bridge. Now, in later rounds, when I connect a railroad here in the center, I do not have to cross off an additional bridge point. Here we have a completed canyon board after a full 7 rounds. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at our longest canyon, which we can see runs all through the middle of our board here. We'll score 1 point for length of canyon that we have. In addition to that, any canyons that start and end off the board will be worth an additional 2 points. Since our longest canyon here ends in the middle of the board and doesn't quite make it to the edge, it won't score any bonus points. But we do have 2 very small canyons in the top corners of our board that will score us 2 points each. The 21 for our longest one, plus our bonus 4 points, will be worth a total of 25 points. Next up, we'll take a look at our forest expansion from Lush Green Edition. These dice contain little trees that are sometimes on their own or sometimes placed with other types of routes. When building these, we have to make sure to abide by the rule that routes of matching types are connected together. So for example, down here where we have this highway and this railroad, that would be an illegal placement. However, we do not have to build off of pre-existing routes. So placing forest pieces up here, even though they have routes in them, are still legal placements for these expansion dice. Let's take a look at how scoring works for the forest expansion. Here I have, again, a completed board after the course of 6 rounds. We are going to look for our largest forest, and a forest is going to be a grouping of trees that is orthogonally connected. So again, diagonals don't count. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 connected spaces in our largest forest. Those will be worth 2 points each. If we have any other forests, we'll look at our second largest, and each space in that will be worth 1 point each. So here we do have 2 smaller forests, which are 1 square each. So we'll score this one for 1 point. Any remaining groups of trees or forests will not be worth points at the end of the game. The last expansion we'll be taking a look at is the Trails expansion from Lush Green Edition. These dice will always depict a type of route as well as a trail. And the use of these dice will limit our gameplay from 7 to down to 6 rounds. The trails are like an extra type of route that are going to help us connect stations. So looking here, I have an example of routes drawn in black and my trails drawn in brown. Anytime you draw a trail that connects to a corner of a square that is adjacent to a station, it will automatically connect. So here you can see I've used 2 trail dice of railroads, one that looks like this right over here, and an additional one that has an overpass with a railroad right over here. Now, since I have a station here and this trail goes into the corner next to it, I am automatically going to draw a trail connecting to that station. Later on, if there are other trails that loop around here, they will again automatically connect out to that station as well. So here's a completed board after using our Trails expansion. Again, we've limited our number of rounds from 7 down to 6. The way that we're going to score trails is very similar to how we score exits in our base game, except we're going to be taking a look at the number of connected stations per trail route and dividing that point value by 2. So let me show you what I mean. Here we have a trail connecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different stations. Using our exit scoring, we see that 7 is worth 24 points. We'll divide that in half. If we have any additional trails that are connecting any other stations, we would score them similarly by splitting them up and adding half of the value of each of those. So there you have it. Those are the 4 mini expansions included in Lush Green and Shining Yellow. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below for more board game content. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. That's all we have for today. Thank you again and see you next time. Bye.